Coming up on Celtics Today, we're going to take a look at 5 players who the Celtics could target in a trade using the Gordon Hayward trade exception. And also, is a Damian Lillard trade unlikely? That's coming up. But first, we'll be live for Game 6 of the NBA Finals on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel. You don't want to miss it. So subscribe if you haven't already done so by going to youtube.com/chatsportstv. What up, Celtics fans? Happy Monday to you. This is Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I am your host, Chase Sr. While the Celtics don't have a first-round pick in the upcoming 2021 NBA Draft, they do have some assets they could utilize to upgrade their roster. One of them, the Gordon Hayward trade exception. They used part of it on the Evan Fournier contract leading into the NBA trade deadline, but now they still have $11 million left on that of the $28.5 million, which is really valuable for this organization because they could use a first-round pick. They could also use a lot of upgrades to the roster to surround Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They'll be able to utilize that with the remaining $11 million of that trade exception. Here's this as well. Because the Celtics traded away Kemba Walker to the Oklahoma City Thunder in exchange for Moses Brown and Al Horford as they continue to try and fortify that front court, there's another trade exception they can use to their advantage. It's almost $7 million because of that Kemba trade. So there's some financial flexibility for Brad Stevens to work with going into this pivotal offseason, which has already been very busy for the Boston Celtics. They can get back to championship level contention if they round out this roster. So coming up, we're going to take a look at 5 players who the Celtics could look to trade for using that trade exception with that financial flexibility of the remaining of the Gordon Hayward trade exception as well as that Kemba Walker trade exception. Player number 1 who we'll focus on, Tomas Satoransky, who we talked about on Celtics Today last week. Bulls could look to upgrade at the point guard position. Maybe they'll make a run at Lonzo Ball, and if that happens, that could make Tomas Satoransky available. Here's my question, though, for the Celtics in terms of a team-building standpoint. At the point guard spot without Kemba, is Satoransky, Marcus Smart, and Peyton Pritchard, that trio, going to be enough for this team moving forward if they do want to make a deep run in the NBA playoffs? Satoransky, though, pretty solid player, an efficient scorer and a quality playmaker this past year in somewhat limited minutes. He was pretty good for the Chicago Bulls, almost 8 points per game. I like his creation numbers. They don't pop off the page at you, but when you watch him, he is a pretty good passer, averaged almost 5 assists last year. And I talk about him being an efficient scorer. He is shot almost 52% from the floor and can be a guy who can knock down some three-pointers as well. So I don't hate going after Tomas Satoransky. I do think some of the other players on this list are better trade targets. One of them being Norman Powell of the Portland Trail Blazers. Has a player option, was dealt to the Blazers from the Toronto Raptors to try to beef up that lineup around CJ McCollum as well as Damian Lillard. He'd have to opt into the last year of his deal to make this trade happen. His option costs around $11.5 million for this upcoming season, and he's coming off a career year amid that mid-season trade that didn't really work out as well for the Blazers as a lot of people had expected, but when he was with the Toronto Raptors prior to that trade, he was balling out. The numbers went down with the Blazers. That's understandable considering he's playing alongside Dame and CJ, but with the Raptors, let's focus in on these numbers. 19.5 points per game. He's not going to rebound the basketball and be active off the glass. He's not going to break it down and find his teammates. He can score it, though, and the Celtics could use a playmaker like that, especially if they don't re-sign Evan Fournier. He shot almost 50% from the hardwood and almost 44% from distance. Really impressive last year, and I wouldn't hate the fit either, because you saw that he can play alongside 2 other stars in Dame as well as CJ McCollum. He can do so in Boston alongside Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So what's your level of interest in a trade for Norman Powell? Get your votes in. Get those thoughts in the comment section. Scale it for me from 1 to 10. Let's pivot ahead to Josh Richardson. Kind of a weird fit last year on the Dallas Mavericks. Daryl Morey kind of fleeced Dallas by getting back Seth Curry for Josh Richardson, and his fit on that roster just didn't work out. They could look to trade Richardson if he accepts his $11.5 million player option, similar to Norman Powell's. I just don't think he's a good fit alongside Luka Doncic with Dallas. That's why I have him on this list. And he has some value. He's a good defender, can guard multiple positions on the floor, and last year, while his shooting numbers were down, he only shot around 43% from the floor. I do think he's a better shooter than that. He can somewhat break you down and create off the dribble, more of a catch-and-shoot guy, but Josh Richardson, because he plays defense, doesn't demand the basketball a lot, could fit in on the Celtics roster. I think Larry Nance is a perfect trade candidate. Celtics, going into the NBA trade deadline, we had said here, got to trade for a big, and a versatile big could help this roster out a lot. They didn't do that. So looking and projecting forward, Celtics could really use a versatile floor spacing big guy like Larry Nance. Might have to part ways with young assets, though, to bring him in because he's still a pretty valuable player. And would a combination of maybe Peyton Pritchard, Aaron Nesmith, Romeo Langford be enough to get a player back the caliber of Larry Nance? I'm not saying you have to give up all three of them, but maybe one or two of those guys. Last year, in the bunker that is Cleveland, Larry Nance I thought was pretty good. And if he can put up these numbers with the Celtics, I think he'd be a pretty solid addition. 9+ points. He's very active on the glass. He's a rim-running guy who's an uber athlete, but has also started to stretch his game to the three-point arc so he can be that floor spacer. Gave the Cavaliers a steal and a half per game last year, and he's a high flyer. He's got pogo sticks. He can give you half a block a night, maybe even a block per night. This is an all-around player, and I think he's a more ideal fit than Tristan Thompson. Tristan Thompson, 7 years ago, was a great player in the NBA because you could stick him down on the low block. He was a good defender, high-energy player, active on the glass. He can't shoot for lick, though. Larry Nance can. And he'll give you 3 attempts from distance a night, so I think he's a more ideal fit than Tristan Thompson. Grade Larry Nance and his fit with the Celtics if they did move forward with a trade like this. A, B, C, D, or F. Get those votes in the comments section. Let's continue to examine the front court. Derrick Favors of the Utah Jazz, I like it for a couple of reasons. The Jazz, they're tight on cash. They have more than $107 million committed to 5 players, and that's without paying upcoming free agent Mike Conley, who I think Quinn Snyder, Donovan Mitchell would like to bring back into the equation. And Favors, due to make around $10 million next season, a little bit less than that. This is a quality big who can score and rebound. Has he become the player that a lot of people had pegged him to be when he was one of the higher recruits coming out of high school as well as college? No. But pretty valuable player in today's NBA because he's very active, good scorer, good rebounder, and in limited action last year, in the shadow of Rudy Gobert, literal shadow by the way, 15+ minutes per game, 5.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, and a block per night. And you saw in the NBA playoffs that Quinn Snyder would put him in up against larger bigs, athletic bigs, when he needed a guy to crash the boards and give you some activity in terms of blocking shots, and Derrick Favors was able to come through. The Celtics front court last year, I think it was less than ideal. They traded away Daniel Tice to the Bulls. He was a good player, not a great player. Robert Williams, I like him as a pick and roller, as a guy who blocks shots, throws down dunks on some alley-oops, but I think he's more of a rotational piece. I think you can part ways with Tristan Thompson. I don't love him. Grant Williams is just okay, and Jabari Parker at this point of his career, considering the injury issues, is what Jabari Parker is. So Derrick Favors, he's affordable, has some value, some versatility. He's still somewhat young. Do you think he would help solve the Celtics front court issues? If you think he would, type Y for yes. If you don't think he would, hey, it's all right. It's not a hot take. Put that in the comment section for no. Can't wait to be live for NBA Finals Game 6 watch party on Tuesday night on our main Chat Sports YouTube channel. I'll be bringing you some live play-by-play. We'll have a live scoreboard. I'll be taking all of your NBA-related questions throughout the broadcast and probably after the broadcast. And here at Chat Sports, yeah, we like to hit you with some hard-hitting analysis, but we like to have fun as well. Maybe there will even be some drinking. So go to our main Chat Sports YouTube channel, youtube.com/chatsportstv, and subscribe so you don't miss the Game 6 watch party. You're watching Celtics Today by Chat Sports, and here on the channel, we've talked a lot about Damian Lillard. Is he available on the trade market? Different reports about that. And could the Celtics bring him in without giving up Jaylen Brown? Probably not. So on Friday, the NBA news and rumors were just off the chain because according to True Hoop, Damian Lillard is expected to request a trade in, quote, the days to come. But after Team USA's basketball practice on Friday, Dame had refuted those reports. My response to that, which star player wouldn't refute reports like that because it doesn't do anything in terms of leverage. I don't think the Celtics can trade for Dame if they don't give up Jaylen Brown. That's why I think it's somewhat unrealistic that they'll make a trade for Dame. Peter Forsberg of NBC Sports Boston agrees with me. Do you agree? We'll explore that further coming up. Here's what Forsberg had to say about this Dame trade just not coming to fruition. Daydream all you want about Damian Lillard in green, but here's the reality, Forsberg said. Unless you're willing to give up Jaylen Brown as the centerpiece of a trade package, there's virtually no chance it happens, and that should be a non-starter for the Boston Celtics. Lillard is undeniably talented and a joy to watch with his limitless range. The Celtics have sorely missed a small wrist-tapping guard who thrives in the fourth quarter, ever since they dealt Isaiah Thomas. But unlike some situations that offer a path to a three-star pairing in Boston, including multiple avenues with someone like Bradley Beal, Lillard's contract status makes it likely that Portland digs in for the highest possible return in any trade scenario. That's why I think a trade for Dame is somewhat unlikely. I'd also be hesitant to give up Jaylen Brown. You're talking about a guy who's still ascending in his career. The jump that he has made from the 2016 draft until now has been really remarkable. His development has been absolutely insane, and I still think Jaylen Brown is tapping into his potential, and that's not considering the fact that Boston as a city, Boston as an organization really values this guy. I talk about the growth and the jump that Jaylen Brown has made from his rookie season to year 5 this past year that was cut short because of that wrist injury. 6.5 points per game to almost 25 points per game, less than 3 rebounds to 6. Field goal percentage has gone up to 48%. Really the big jump has taken place beyond the arc as well as at the charity stripe, 34% to almost 40 and 68.5% to 76+%. I love Jaylen Brown, and I haven't even mentioned this yet. He is one of the best two-way players in the league today. And I think that a deal for Dame would have to include Jaylen Brown. And what else do you give up? You'd have to give up probably Marcus Smart, an Aaron Nesmith, a Romeo Langford, maybe even a Peyton Pritchard. And at that point, you get back Dame, who's a cold-blooded killer and a go-to scoring option down the stretch. And it would be a tantalizing duo with Dame as well as Jason Tatum. But you give up all those assets, and what do you have? Not much. To me, that's a team that is going to be hovering a little over 500. Would you give up Jaylen Brown for Damian Lillard? That's our big question before we get out of here. Type T for trade, type P for pass. Get those votes in down below. Celtics Today is one of the fastest growing channels here at Chat Sports. It's been taken off like crazy. This is your go-to spot for all of your Celtics offseason content. We're talking latest Celtics news and rumors, free agency updates, NBA draft coverage. We have you covered, and we're trying to get to 7,000 subscribers. So if you made it to this point in the video, you probably like what you're seeing here. A bunch of other people like what they're seeing here. That's why that subscriber count continues to grow. Be the next one to sub, youtube.com/CelticsTV, or hit that red subscribe button down below.